If you remember, the past few weeks, the crypto market was mostly just going sideways. Now, this past week, it has been very different. ETH has taken off massively, getting close to previous bull run highs. Other altcoins heated up as well. Now, is this the beginning of the altcoin rally we've been waiting for? Or more of the same? Let's dig deeper today and take a look. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there are potential here for life-changing gains, but you're also smart enough to know that you don't get rich over 2 weeks. It really can take you 4 to 8 years to get really good in this space, and it takes time for your investments to mature. So if you realize that and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, what I call a savage crypto investor, kind of like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, well, you're in exactly the right place. Now, I was once new to the crypto space myself 8 years ago, but I wasn't new to investing. And so I was trying to get a feel for crypto. And I loved YouTube because I like to hear long discussions about crypto. What I didn't know at that time is that you grow a huge YouTube channel by talking about things when they're already high and being optimistic for why they'd go higher. So I didn't realize that first year the incentives were all wrong. I was there hungry for analysis on cryptos that were underpriced, undervalued. And I didn't find that because YouTube doesn't really reward you for speaking about those projects because nobody's searching for them when they're underpriced. Well, I created a channel and we discuss exactly that. We discuss crypto as an investment. We discuss most important things like the overall 4-year investment cycle, specific projects and the pros and cons of those projects, the risks I feel or see in those projects, and the guesses at upside if it comes together well. Also, if you're looking for even deeper discussions, join our private Patreon group. Our private Patreon group allows you access to the Rainmaker private Discord. The private Discord is where the best discussion and best info is. There are other benefits too, but you'll have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul, who is joining us from DEVVE, invests in many of the different markets. None of this is to be taken as financial advice. Probably already have, but if you haven't, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. And help me welcome Paul from DEVVE. Paul, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure as always, especially when things all seem to be moving in the right direction.
That was fun. Yeah, I love seeing ETH absolutely take off. And I was like, okay, let's see if it's ready to break its previous highs. I don't know that it is, but that was a solid move for ETH. And some of the other altcoins have responded as well.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think we had it on the radar with the spreads, and we had it on the radar with a breakout, and there was some interesting. I mean, we're going to look at it again, so I can show you the chart. But it was certainly pushing that way, and I think the last 2 or 3 weeks, perhaps even a bit longer, we're talking about maybe the spreads moving more aggressively. But what's nice about this is, again, this is lifting the broader altcoins. I did mention in passing that I'd listened to Kathy Woods talking about her Bitcoin investments and how that they'd invested a lot of money. Sorry, they'd invested a lot of time researching Bitcoin and ETH at a very early stage. And so they've also invested in ETH, which is, it's not like a make or break for me. I don't really care whether they've invested in it a lot or not, but it was just another kind of green flag for this could snap back with everything else, which is kind of a broader expectation anyway, because Bitcoin, as you know, we were looking for that 120K a long time ago, and it hit it, but it felt slightly, for want of a better word, slightly muted because the altcoin rally hasn't happened. Now, of course, everyone's questioning whether the altcoin rally will happen, and there's no guarantee of anything, but this last phase of this bull market would feel slightly incomplete if we didn't get some crazy bull run in the altcoins. So it would be surprising if it didn't happen. It wouldn't be impossible, but it would be surprising. And so this is a kind of, another tick to say, okay, this is now starting to move. It's starting to do what the probabilities are suggesting. And so for me, it's like a good green light. Now, some of the macro themes, i.e. the equity markets that have been running really hot, and certain things that are already pricing in the short term, may have run a little too far and might need a correction. And August, as we've said before, you can see corrections in August, or at least strange price action. So that's a small caveat. That's not like saying, that's like short-term timing. Longer term, nothing really has changed. We still expect further upside. It looks like Bitcoin's going to go again. There's plenty happening. So, it's all worth watching, and you can just tell that people are taking their eye off the ball, and it's a bad time to be doing that, I think.
What's funny is in the crypto space, like, people take their eye off the ball all the time, as far as like when things are down. I remember just a couple months ago, a major crypto channel talking about how they were going all in on Solana from ETH, literally ETH's price at the bottom. And I was like, yeah, ETH's going to do just fine. It's just been out of the narrative for a while, but it's not going anywhere. Too much is built on it, and so many things continue to be built on it. It's going to be around for at least this cycle, if not for forever. And so, like, that's going to be a huge mistake. Of course, they were buying Solana at like highs and selling their ETH at lows, and they've been in the crypto space for like 8 years. And I'm like, doesn't this person know? Like, this is such a rookie mistake. But, of course, then ETH ran and Solana came down, and then they sold it all and went back, and they lost huge amounts of where they would be, just because, like, the truth is, like, I don't know. For me, it seems so predictable, because something comes out of the narrative for a long time, especially when it's something like ETH that has such a major narrative, it will come back in. And Solana had been running really hot for quite a while. And that's usually when I take profits and I buy what's cheap, because I've just seen that pattern work so well in crypto. And people that do the opposite, I guess he had to learn that lesson yet again, because I learned that lesson quite a few times when I was early in crypto. And that lesson's painful. Selling what's low to buy what's high, only to have it reverse while the other thing takes off. Yeah, I think I made that mistake twice in my early days. Never again.
I think it's important that everyone kind of finds their own way of dealing with the market, because no one strategy is, inverted commas, correct. Everyone has to find a way that works with their personality. So for some people, for example, I was talking to your style reminds me very much of how value investors invest in the broader market. So what they'll do is they'll look for something that's cheap, and they've got metrics for what they regard as cheap, and then they'll buy up what they think is cheap. And when on their metrics they think it's expensive, they will then exit the positions and then rotate into whatever's cheap again.
Yeah.
But it also means that sometimes they will miss out on really big gains, because the markets will just keep going and going. But also, equally, and those are the ones that I guess fewer people talk about, they will get out of things at a good profit and then have money to roll into something that is then cheap. So, I was talking to a value investor who was investing in, Bitcoin, but got out at like 70,000 or 60,000 and was quite happy, because he felt that it was over. And to me, it was like, well, the trend isn't over. But if that's your metric and you're happy with it, and if they've rotated into something else that's going to make money, then of course they're not worried about it. So it really is, I mean, I learned very early on that markets are a game of psychology, and it's really important to know where you fit in that psychology as to what works for you. Some people are very short-term traders, some people are long-term traders. You know, some people want to buy cheap, some people go with the trend, etc., etc. It's everyone's different, and you just have to find your method. But there's definitely things to do that are wrong, that I think everyone agrees on. And it's a bit like diets, isn't it? Like people talk about what's a healthy diet. I mean, we still can't agree on what a healthy diet is, but people will say, like, no matter what diet, processed food is really bad for you. And so that it's very similar in that way. I see everything as trading. So, but anyway, that aside, it helps a lot when we've got a very positive macro scene, and we definitely have that. And there's I don't know if I mentioned this last week, and I apologize if I didn't mention it, because I can't remember if we talked about it or if I just saw it afterwards, but there has been there's some interesting movements in the short term interest rate futures markets that suggest that a September rate cut is almost sort of guaranteed. Now I'm saying it, I think I did mention it, and we did look at some of the reasons for that. It could be, you know, a change in chairmanship for the Federal Reserve, but the futures markets are moving very strongly towards that. Now that can mean one of two things: either rates are definitely going to go down, and it's Trump getting his way, and finally the weaker data is having its effect, and the markets are really enjoying what they're seeing right now, or there's something really bad in the system that lots of people have seen early, and they know that in order to deal with that, there'll be a rate cut. Now, I think it's more the former rather than the latter. The UK have cut interest rates here. Australia's cut interest rates. Canada may cut interest rates again in September. So it seems like most central banks are on a cutting profile. For whatever reason, that's what they want to do. So I don't think that it's going to be necessarily a shock in terms of something bad, but it might be. I don't know. But either way, the reaction could be one that will be used to buy into, and it doesn't change the longer term trajectory of the market. So this could just be an interruption on the way to much higher prices. So we shall see. But either way, it's becoming much firmer in the markets that interest rates should be cut.
Chris has a question related to this exact topic. Paul, do you think a rate cut would signal a top as more of a buy the rumor, sell the news type event?
That's a really, really good question. Yeah, possibly in the short term, but I don't think in this phase it will do enough, because it's almost like a truckload of alcohol's just arrived at the party, but none's coming after that. So I think the markets will enjoy that and then worry about what's coming down the road later, and they may be too much in party mode. But short-term reaction, certainly, you could see a knee-jerk reaction, but where we'd have to look would be is if the dollar is still going down, it will be a de facto cut in rates anyway. And as long as oil price is falling, that helps too. Even though the profile after September will be for rates to go up, and that will be the last cut, which is, I think, why you're asking this. Aside from buy the rumor, sell the fact, and I think that will be the case, I don't think rates will go up quick enough, so the market will just be taking off, and the rate profile won't be able to catch up until next year. So it's going to build up this, momentum that's going to be very hard to turn around. And it's only in the final stages, when they're trying to slow everything down, that they'll overdo that. That'll be when the market's a bit too weak, too much speculation, and then we have the turn. So there's a few steps, but you're right to be thinking in those terms, and we'll see where we are as we approach it. But yes, it's very much being flagged, and it's been on the radar again for a long time, and most people have disagreed with it, which was kind of another interesting point. So the fact that now they're getting closer to this cut is, and seeing actually this is going to happen, I think makes it even more interesting that we might get like a short-term pullback. But I don't think it's going to be the top. I don't think this isn't enough for a major top. Minor top, possibly, not a major top.
Yeah, good question. Sailing says Q4 CapEx impact. I don't know what CapEx. Continuing into 2026. Quantitative tightening and quantitative easing flip. Do we know, have they been quantitative easing at the Fed?
I think they've been doing more tightening. I haven't looked closely enough to see if they flipped. I mean, if they have, then that would be interesting. What I've seen is that I've just been looking at I don't really pay that close attention to what's going on. I look very peripherally because the markets are telling me what's going on, right? So that's why the markets kind of wag the dog of the it's the tail wagging the dog, really. So the markets tell the Fed what to do rather than the other way around. All the markets are ahead of the Fed. That's how I see it. And so I tend not to look that closely. So I don't know whether they've switched. At last look, they were doing QT. I don't know whether they'll go to QE, because I think they cut before going to QE. It would make much more sense that they cut first and then go to QE. I mean, if they go to QE after cutting, load the boats. I mean, things will get crazy. Maybe that's what they got wind of. I mean, that's a really interesting thought. I'll have to come back to that on next week. I'll have a look. That's given me a thought there. So we shall see. Capital expenditure is what CapEx is. It's how much money companies basically spend. And this is an environment where banks are making money. They want to lend. And so that's likely to go up. And this is why I'm saying you look at the stock market, because you see how much money is in the system. That's how much money companies have, how much money companies are willing to risk on various projects, more risky projects, hire more people have money, more people spend, more people put money into crypto projects in a bullish environment will get investment. All these things tying together. So that doesn't mean that in a bear market you can't get a good crypto project off the ground. It's just a lot harder because you've got all the problems of trying to raise money. But if you've got a good idea, it can work in any market. It's just a good market right now. You're selling ice creams and it's boiling hot, so there should be a queue.
Yeah. It's better to be selling ice cream, even if it's not the highest quality ice cream, on a boiling hot day. And we're going into that type of market.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a look. So walk us through the charts that you're looking at, Paul, before we get into Bitcoin.
Yeah, sure. Well, these are really interesting charts up here at the moment. And the reason is that the Dow is right the way back at this 45,000 level. 1, 2, kind of 3, 4, a little wobble here. Wondered whether that was linked to a year ago when we had that Asian or Japanese yen sell-off. I say sell-off, people were buying yen, selling everything else. And the Japanese stock market collapsed. Actually, what I'm going to do is jump. Am I going to jump to the Japanese stock market? Let's see where it is. It's here, right? So the Japanese stock market, this is what it did last year. So it had this big dump, and then it had another dump on the tariffs, but then it's recovered both, and now it's gone into a new all-time high. So markets globally are making new highs. And so if we go to the Dow, it's pressing this very key level. Now, it's not impossible for it to not break that, of course, but it's knocking on the door, and that's the first step to a strong breakout. So we shall see whether this is a a bull trap, and a bull trap is when the market goes up and then snaps straight back down again. But overall, the trend is still bullish. And if we think about from December 24 to where we are now, it's not actually gone anywhere. So if we take January, market was trading at 42. Yes, it did dump down, but it's trading at 44. So it's only really up on the year 2000. Now, of course, that's part of a longer term trend, but there's much more kind of bullish pressure behind this that should send it much higher. So this looks really bullish. So we'll see what happens, but that it looks like it's going to break higher. Transport index still in a range, but looking for a breakout. Nasdaq is leading the way. That's not looking back at all. And the S&P, of course, is the same. So all those trends are still looking bullish. Granted, we will see a correction at some point, but in technical analysis, you have to wait for the chart pattern to tell you that the market's turned. And around here, we got a topping pattern, and it was aggressive. Sometimes it can be short and sharp, and then it recovers fast. This obviously was a very key area, but it's recovered from there, and the trend is still up. So that's all we can say at this point. Macro scene looks bullish. Now, I'd like to jump to the short-term interest rate markets just to show you why this is, so key. I've got to take it off log because it kind of messes the chart up a little bit. But you can see how this has been going sideways for a long time, and now it's pushing below. This is 3-month government bond yields, and they're pushing towards the 4% level, which implies if they're not going to cut rates, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. The 6-month money is below 4%. So if the money's below 4% in 6 months, I don't see how that's going to happen unless there's at least one cut. And if they're talking about 2 cuts, I mean, this thing's going to go off the hook. It's going to be crazy. So I don't think there will be 2, but let's see. Crazier things have happened. 10-year and 2-year money is more subdued. 10-year obviously you're going to be starting to worry about inflation further down that curve, and that's not really moved very much. But the short-term part of the curve is looking very interesting. So I guess we shall see. But overall, equity markets are looking bullish, and it looks like interest rates are going to fall. So oil price is well behaved, and just going to find the dollar index to see what's going on there. I mean, it's generally sort of weakening. Let's look at gold just very quickly. That's still stuck in the range. It's actually quite frustrating because it should have broken out by now. We'll have to come back to that. Silver looks like it's going to break out. And some of the other ones are just going sideways, really. Palladium and platinum are just not really doing a lot. But overall, we're in bullish trends there. But dollar index, where is that? Come on, it's down here. Dollar index. It had a rally, touched 100. I thought maybe something bigger was going to build up, especially with August. I'm just on this August alert, really. Perhaps I'm being too cautious, but it kind of failed over or close to 100 or just over 100. Brilliant kind of retest, round number. Now, if the market is getting wind of a rate cut, to be fair, rates are being cut elsewhere, as not just in the US. So if you're going to say US rates are going down and that's why the dollar should weaken, it's kind of, yeah, but rates are going down elsewhere. So it's all balancing out. Overall, though, the trend is still lower. And we know kind of Donald Trump wants a weaker dollar anyway. So anyone who's kind of steps in and cuts rates perhaps more aggressively and causes this to happen will cause 2 things to happen: a much weaker dollar and a much stronger stock market, much more in terms of risk on. And where will people look to kind of invest their money? They're going to probably move more into crypto again because they'll want to protect themselves against upcoming inflation. So dollar weakness still pretty much in line with this long-term pattern. 94.74 was a major breakout point. So that's a short-term target, but it could easily get to 90. And maybe, we'll have to visit it or look at it when we get closer to it. Maybe maybe even below these levels, it would be very interesting if that's happening. So, but if there was ever an environment that was setting this sort of move up, this is it. You've got a president who's into cryptocurrency, looking to China kind of influence the Fed into making the dollar weaker and interest rates lower, which is going to increase the downward pressure on the dollar and increase the upward pressure on cryptocurrencies. So here we are.
What's that? It says, great to hear I can finally sell my silver after 14 years of holding for a juicy 18% profit. That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, that depends where you bought it, really. If you bought it at the high, that's kind of, that's all to do with long-term investing.
Yeah.
But what could you buy? Look at the silver kind of. Some people look at the silver, or actually more the gold, like the gold market, like gold versus the stock market, gold versus house prices, real estate in America. And if you look at how much it costs to buy a house in gold, like, I don't know, 50 years ago, maybe more, and you look at how much it costs now, it's about the same amount of gold. So it just goes to show what part of the equation is being inflated away. And silver hasn't performed as well as gold, that's absolutely for sure. But I guess there's a possibility of that changing.
It's true. Silver hasn't kept up as well. And do you think it's because it's more abundant, or because people don't hold it as much as a store of value?
Yeah, I possibly because people don't hold it as much as a store of value. I mean, it's very hard to put a meaningful position into silver because it's cheaper. So, and I don't think necessarily this is the time to sell it. I think this is the time that things are going to get more exciting in the precious metals market, because most people have ignored it. But if you look at how much it costs to buy a kilo of silver, and how much, I mean, it's possibly £1,000, maybe something like that. I'd have to look. I don't know exactly. But if you look at how much it costs to buy a kilo of gold, I mean, you're looking at probably 60,000-70,000 pounds, maybe, or something in that region. So it's a huge difference in sort of density of value per weight. So if you're super wealthy and you want to take your money out of the system, you've got Bitcoin and you've got gold, and traditionally it's been gold. So I guess that's why it's been moving closer towards it. And certainly in the UK, there's a lot of talk of our Labour government, which is the equivalent of a democratic government in the Democrats in America. There's a lot of talk of what they're going to do to raise money for the spending that they clearly overspent during the COVID lockdowns. All that money had to go somewhere, and now they're looking to plug a big black hole that they've got, apparently. And so they're looking at taxing people, and all this is to come. So it wouldn't surprise me if the super wealthy was sticking money in gold, because in the UK you get no capital gains tax, so whatever it makes, and it is also an inheritance tax is something that they're looking at as well. And it's I guess it's easier to give that as an inheritance gift than it is to give money, which will be directly taxed. So, I think that's partly why gold's going up and silver isn't. But silver is also, I think, one of the interesting things about silver is the best conductor of electricity out of all the metals. And I wonder, potentially with the AI arms race that's going on, whether silver will become a bigger player in manufacturing, because if you want incremental advantages, maybe using silver wire as opposed to copper, which is 60% conductive compared to silver, but obviously a lot cheaper. Maybe that will be what they'll be looking at, because when you start to go down to these microscopic levels, every incremental gain makes a huge difference. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about it to know whether that's definitely a fact, but it is I know for sure that silver is the most conductive metal of all. So, with AI, it is possible, but things may change. We'll see. But silver's not. It's not like it's going down. It's performed better than, say, platinum and palladium. But yes, just not as good as gold.
Yeah. Let's dive into what's happening, because even Bitcoin increased and ETH definitely did.
Yeah. So let's have a look at ETH. Sorry, did you say Bitcoin and ETH or just ETH?
Yeah, Bitcoin and ETH.
Okay. Here we are. So Bitcoin chart, we have this consolidation pullback. Now it's coming back to the high. There's not much of a correction. Trend is still up. We can just draw this trend line across here. And I think the interesting thing to look at, I mean, it's hit that perfectly. The interesting thing to look at is the fear. Where's the fear and greed index? Thought it was here. Maybe it's here. Here we go. It's at 63. So it's just edging up into greed. It's not crazy into greed. So it's not like madly overbought on this basis. So it could well go much higher from here in the short term. So the chart's still bullish, I guess. That's the only way I can describe it. But ETH is obviously on the run, and we need to take a step back to look at the big picture of what's happening there. And we've discussed these levels many times, and we had this resistance here that it just broke through. And we had that comment a little while back that someone's been quite sarcastic about this run and how it wasn't enough. Well, it's about to take its all-time high out, which is a very important technical pattern. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're playing up here towards the end of the year. It really does look like it wants to move. So if we look at the ETH Bitcoin spread, we had this first move, which we did identify, then it consolidated, and then this base, which we did identify, and then it's run actually into this line that's been on this chart for a while because it was drawn from here. So this, to me, I think is perhaps going to see a bit of a pullback, but that could just be ETH holding off and Bitcoin taking another run. And then further out, we could be heading towards this level, which means more outperformance of ETH against Bitcoin. So the spread's looking interesting, and the actual chart itself is looking interesting. So this is what can I say? Everything seems to be pointing in the positive direction. So it's a good time, I suppose, to feel quite excited about what could be coming next. Now, obviously, I've got to temper that with probabilities, and I don't know for 100% that what the market's going to do, but everything's moving in the right direction. So we'll have to see how this plays out. And the USDT dominance, that's heading lower. So this is a big level. And from my chart reading, I would say that this looks like it is going to break down. So that would imply that there's going to be more money going into crypto. And Bitcoin dominance, again, we looked at this consolidation and how that was a predictable. Technically, it looked like it was going to fall even further. So again, this is another indication that altcoins are coming into focus. So yeah, really interesting time. So we'll have to see the individual charts and see what they look like. But I can say that some of the major names are looking really interesting.
Yeah, and usually, like historically, and we only have 2 cycles to go off of, really, 2017 and 2021, where it cycled from mostly Bitcoin into major alt caps into then lower alt caps. Now, there were also some lower alt caps that ran at that same time, but as a general trend, that's mostly how it played out. And you're seeing that with ETH running and some other higher cap altcoins running some. Now, will they continue? Like, we're not at the altcoin blow off top. In fact, we're not even, let me share this. I was looking at Bitcoin. So look how vertical this starts to go when it really goes crazy, and we're not that vertical yet. So we're in this slower, more reasonable uptrend. And usually when there's a blow off top, there's this big vertical period. See how vertical it goes here between April and December in 2017. And so this is more reasoned. We haven't really gone vertical, but man, maybe we won't. If it would to go vertical, it would have to really go up to some high numbers, which means we would have a super cycle. Now, if Chairman Powell is replaced at the Fed and they go quantitative easing and they do a couple interest rate cuts, boy, that would be bullish for risk on assets. And crypto, probably we would see that super cycle. So we'll see. Normal trend, if you look at this one's hard to pull up. What is it? Give me a second. I'll pull that up in a minute. General trend, when you look at Bitcoin over time from 2013 to 2017 to 2021, it would put the top of this trend if we were to just do a normal cycle, somewhere between 155,000 up to 185,000. So it shouldn't break higher than that unless we do enter a super cycle, which we may do. We'll see. All right, let's take a look at Chainlink, which has had some interesting action and is an altcoin that really has a need. And so what I think a lot of people miss that are Bitcoin maxis is some of these altcoins introduce technology that's necessary for the Web3 revolution. They get so caught up as Bitcoin is a store of value that they don't realize some of these altcoins have technology that's so relevant and so useful, and they're missing the bigger picture. It's great that they got the bigger picture with Bitcoin, but I don't know how they don't realize that some of these altcoins and their technology are super necessary.
So Chainlink is in a very interesting technical position because, I mean, you've heard me talk about the kind of central part of a range and how when a market is playing in there, it's very, very neutral. Well, this is heading towards the upper resistance. It's played off this lower resistance line, beautifully. I mean, it's been a while since we've looked at it. I mean, I did adjust this part back, but it was in from a long time ago, and I haven't looked at it since we last looked at it on the show, and I don't know when that was. So it's been literally playing off this line really, really well. So it only has to break through this area here, which is not much in crypto currency terms, for it to be on its way to the final resistance at 51. So yeah, for me, that is getting ready to break out. So it's a buy. This whole area is very similar to the ETH compression that I mentioned before. I know it's been a difficult range, but the big picture has been a structure of a market that is compressing into what should be a bullish breakout. Now, of course, there's no guarantee of that, but directionally, the first, people who first start looking at technicals, they're always looking for tops. So everywhere they'll look for a top. What we have to do is let the market tell us, and the market is telling us that this wants to go higher. So yeah, it might not, but the probability is on that side. So that's what I want to go with, and especially with everything else that's going on, and the way the spreads are moving. So for me, this is done what it should do in a consolidation, i.e., it's gone sideways and compressed. The next move should be a break through this resistance line. That's really the green light. I suppose we should wait for that. I mean, if I was to be a bit more cautious, I'd say, yeah, it's a wait until that line goes. But given what else is going on, I'm going to be a bit more bullish and say it's a buy now, knowing that I could be wrong, and would be my decision that I might be getting in early, and that might mean I have to sit with it into another correction. before it then goes up and breaks out, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe I've got to bail out, but at least I know the level to bail out of it would be below this support line because it's played off it so nicely. So any break of that, I now have to, I'm wrong and I'm out of the trade. But that's how technicals work. So yeah, interesting one. And I'm glad that we've updated this because it has been a while.
Yeah, Chainlink is a major one. So they offer an Oracle service, which oracles are really important for DeFi. So DeFi often needs to check what prices are in order to complete transactions. And so they need a reliable, what they call Oracle solution that keeps track of what prices are. And Chainlink's been the #1 Oracle provider, and it's a very necessary service. Now they have a lot of competitors that have come in that offer faster updates to what prices are, or supposedly better, but they've been very, very dominant in this space. And I think in a bull run, especially when DeFi goes crazy, that Chainlink does some really big numbers. So it's just mostly been out of the narrative for a long time. So you see a long consolidation. Hasn't broke its 2021 highs yet. I think in this bull market, it breaks it and then exceeds it. Now, I don't buy large caps like Chainlink. I think I did buy a little bit when it got really, really cheap during the bear market. But at these prices, it's not what I'm touching. So I do like Chainlink and their technology, and it was an amazing deal, even back here at under $6. So you can see it's 4 times over its lows. There are other deals that I like better. Paul said it well. I'm a value investor. I like buying what's cheap, and I like selling it when it's high. And sometimes when you sell it when it's high, you end up selling it early because sometimes it then goes higher. But with the 4-year cycle in crypto being pretty consistent, it's been a good play to really multiply my money. And yeah, it's been nice, especially when I sell things when they go higher. If there's still some things that are cheap that I really, really like that haven't yet popped with the bull market, that really amplified my gains in 2021. So let's see. Chainlink for me, its market cap's at 16 billion. So am I buying it? No. Do I like it as a blue chip? Yes. So for me, I'm not actually buying it. But if I was buying blue chips, it would be one that I would be holding. All right, let's take a look at Arbitrum, which has had some interesting price action.
Yeah, I do remember looking at this, and obviously we've got the break of this trend line, which is the first indication that the market was changing its trend from bearish to base to potential bull. And then this line was already on here. So that was from when we looked at it before as the breakout buy point. And I've said before that you can buy it early ahead of a breakout, which gives you a little bit of room. But the downside of that is that it doesn't break out and you get stuck with a position. So I've said exactly that with Chainlink. If you want to buy ahead of the breakout, fine, but you may be stuck with a position and it's safer to wait until it goes through. But again, it's like you pay your money, you take your choice. So it depends what sort of trader you are. And so for me, this is one that a break of this 50.52 was the signal. So anything above here, I would consider that to be me chasing it a little bit because I should have bought it here. I should have been watching it. And if I missed it, then that's just kind of it. I'd need another pattern to jump in. Now, it's not all roses for this because this is a downward trend here, as you can see. And that line needs to be broken on the way up. And we have got this falling moving average here as well. So if there's conflicting information, i.e. there is a base, but there's also other things that are still to be resolved, my way of dealing with that is I will take the first signal that's come and go with that until it gets negated. So in other words, the first signal here was a buy. So I will go with that buy until it reaches this downward trend line. Now it'll do one or two things. It'll either, well, it could three things, I suppose. One is it doesn't make it there. Two is it makes it there and it sees it as resistance and comes off. Or three, it goes through it. So the way I would deal with that is put a stop below here and then move it up as it gets closer to the downward trend line. But I wouldn't, at this point, I would say this is the buy signal. So for me, it's a buy because of that. So I personally wouldn't be waiting for this downward trend line to break, even though that would be a very good technical outcome if it did do that. So it looks like it's made a base. The other caveat is, yeah, there's some good data here. It'd be nicer if there was a bit more. I mean, you look at Chainlink, it's good to see where all the levels are and how it's consolidated. This has been in quite a bear market since January 24. So it is important that it maintains these levels and sees quite a strong move towards this 70 cents point to kind of break it out of all of that. So, you know, would I be putting everything in? No, I would be, well, I never do that anyway, but I would be taking initial steps here rather than, you know, a certain level of caution needs to be added because of the way the bigger picture chart looks. But overall, it's a buy. I think I may be able to find a better one, but on this, you know, just looking at this, it looks like it's going to go higher.
I think it's been punished long enough. In narrative cycle, Arbitrum, I think, has good fundamentals behind it. Let me flip over to this screen. So Arbitrum, for what it does, which it acts as kind of a layer 1 or a layer 2 scaling solution. No Bumper, which is a project I'm very familiar with, moved over to Arbitrum because they needed lower transaction fees for people to be able to use it. And Arbitrum was their choice. Now, what goes down doesn't go down for forever. And it looks like it's broke up from this point. I think it's even broken up from this point. And so it probably is going to head further up. Now, am I buying it? Again, it's a blue chip at this point. So the market cap's almost 3 billion. I'm not buying it, but I am absolutely watching it because in the greater bull run, Arbitrum and a lot of these layer 1 and layer 2 scaling solutions are going to take off tremendously. And DeFi hasn't run yet. And DeFi and Arbitrum, like Arbitrum's solidly set up for DeFi plays. So I'm looking as to when DeFi is going to run again, and perhaps we're heading that way. So is it a buy? It is a buy. It's not that I'm buying it. I'm in riskier stuff, and a lot of the riskier stuff isn't yet running, and that's okay. It'll cascade in a little while into that if this bull run continues. All right, so we got some suggestions. Chris earlier asked if we could take a look at SHX. Now, I got to step away just for a second. Paul, do you mind pulling up SHX?
Sure, yeah. I love this comment here. You need to learn more, bro. Your TA very weak. That's funny.
Who said that?
This Albert. Yeah.
Albert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Brilliant.
you've only had 30 years experience. I mean,
yeah,
you know.
it's interesting. Like, I really love to know what you know that I don't. But maybe you do. I mean, come on. Could you do us a favor? Tell us where your YouTube channel is with all the great information, and we'll follow you. I'd love to learn. I'm happy to learn from anybody, but you know, I think that's really interesting comment.
Well, what's funny on YouTube and stuff, right? So I was watching this guy that's absolutely a master at marketing, and then I was watching the comments of people using terms like "bro." And they're like, oh, you know, telling him his Lamborghini was probably rented and stuff. And I know enough about this guy that no, he owns all those things. And I was just like, oh my gosh. You know, the critics are hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like the critics when, you know, Aaron Rodriguez would get up to bat or something, right? And people who can't even swing a bat would be critical of Aaron Rodriguez.
I mean, look, if Justin's saying he thinks my mic's off, but you can hear me fine, right?
Yeah, I hear you fine. So
yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there, but it's definitely on. And but yeah, I mean, look, if you think that's wrong, fine. Well, let's see. Well, I don't know what that's about. It's crazy, really. Based on what, I don't know. But
yeah.
Probably a bot, I would say. But anyway.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna be right back. We're taking a look at SHX. Let me pull that up myself. So is that Stronghold, Chris? What is SHX? Is that Stronghold SHX? Let's just.
But either way, look.
Yeah, that's what he's looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got a little delay. Okay. I'm just going to check because Justin's saying the audio is different. I'm just going to make sure my audio settings are correct. Yeah. He's absolutely right. Audio's not coming through. It's not coming through this mic. It's coming through the other one. Yeah, that's why. Thank you for that. Apologies. I did check it. I don't know why it switched. So there we go. That should be better. So here we have a chart of Stronghold, and it is looking very bullish. I mean, this is a great technical pattern. There was a spike there. Markets come off, retested this as support. We got rising lows into resistance, which is positive. How much data have we got? Goes back to April, May last year. This is all part of an upward trend, isn't it? You can see how this is accelerating, getting ready to move. So I think we could be close to quite a sharp move higher, and yeah, basically going with the trend. So for me, it's a buy. Obviously, the big breakout level is at 2.8 cents because that's the prior resistance, but it's pushing that. Pushed it yesterday, trying again today. We'll see how far it comes back. As long as it doesn't break this short-term run of rising lows, I think it's in with a very good shout. So yeah, so for me, that's a buy.
All right, I caught the end of that. So SHX chart looking interesting, and you are saying it's a buy based on that.
Yeah, was that my mic again, or was there?
No, I had to step away for a sec.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it looks like a buy basically. We've got rising lows, got broader rising lows, we've got short-term rising lows, we've got resistance at 2.8 cents that really needs to break out over for it to accelerate. It's very close to it, but as long as these lows, or mainly this one, holds in at 2.3 cents, I think it's a buy.
All right, let me share my screen and Stronghold, which I don't know much about. $148 million market cap. Interesting. So here's its 2021 run, which went all the way up. And actually it went all the way up here at 5.5 cents. And so it's halfway there already. Let me look at, boy, those charts are very, very different. Okay, that's just because it's on log scale and it doesn't show the full top. Interesting. What I wanted was coin market cap, because give me a better description of what is Stronghold's mission to provide fast, secure, and accessible financial services through our developer APIs. We enable access to legacy, next generation payments, and financial services. Stronghold's currency is used for real-time settlement, discount, and fees, customer service. Interesting. Well, Chris, clearly this is getting some traction, and it's been getting some traction. We had bear market lows down here. It's come up massively from there, and it's continuing the trend to the upside. At least it's looking that way. Interesting. So it's already realized a bunch of its gains. I can't buy it based on that. It's realized a bunch of its gains because I'm still looking for what's cheap, what hasn't really, what's possibly near the bottoms. But it's an interesting one, Chris. I'm curious as to where they're getting traction with this, because that's competing with Ripple, which is definitely getting some traction. Interesting. So obviously they're getting some kind of traction with their APIs and people using them, or it wouldn't be at this kind of market cap. All right, let's see which other ones. That was SHX. Omi oh my. Why don't, he says, no one is talking about ALGO. I keep stacking for my long-term bag. XRP and ADA bags are already packed. Why don't we take a look at ALGO?
Sure. Are we gonna also look at DYNEX? Because that's on.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, it was just before Devo Kyle asked for that. Would that
Oh,
be
yeah.
okay? And then we'll go to
Definitely.
yeah.
I'm missing that. Oh no, ALGO was first and then DYNEX.
Oh, was it? Okay. So, all right. So let's look at ALGO then. So Algorand chart is not as bullish as the previous one, but that doesn't mean it won't go up. We do have these rising lows, which is important. We had the strong bear market, the consolidation, the breakout. I mean, this was the first base. And as we saw that it accelerated, I got excited, of course, because it looked like it was on its way. But then we got this big correction. So what happens usually when the market breaks out like that and then it takes it consolidates, you end up with a bigger kind of basing pattern, which can often mean it runs further. So sometimes it's not such a negative, even though it is in the short term. In the longer term, it can be a positive. Now, this isn't aggressively on the move, but it looks like to me like it's building up, because if you take this low and this low and this low and this low, you can see how it's slowly curving to the upside. And in the short term, in the very short term, we have had a double bottom here and a breakout of that. Again, it's retested, but still there's a lot of what I would call wood to chop around these levels, which is, if you come back here, you can see exactly on that level, which is where it stopped. It's not broken free of this resistance yet, and I think it will only start to accelerate once it gets through that resistance point, this 33 cents. But it's doing the right thing. It's moving higher towards it. So, will it do it in the next couple of weeks? I don't know. Will it do it in the next couple of months? I think it should. So I would say for me, it's a long-term buy, and I would be watching it closely because it is looking interesting in the short term. And it's definitely now that we should be looking at something like this, because we don't want it to be up here going, okay, we should have bought it down here. The aggressive buy is for me through 33 cents when it's showing some signs of acceleration. And you'll see that on the weekly chart with the open and the close of the bars, and this is also, I mean, this is also quite a nice little pullback as a flag, and as a flag pattern that can often, or should be, a very bullish pattern. I prefer it to be a little more compressed and it to be further along in the trend, but it's still possible. But something else I look for is symmetry. So you look at the symmetry of the way this has occurred here and this has occurred here. So by rights, within a week or two, it should be trading at 33 cents. So definitely worth looking at, just tempered slightly because it's not accelerating as much as some of the others, but still all to play for. So for me, that works out to being a buy, but I would be, anticipating holding on. If it doesn't go in the next couple of weeks, it might take a bit longer.
I like this chart, and I like the fundamentals behind Algorand. I like this a lot. So anyway, long way from its previous highs. So it's got about 8x to get to its previous highs from 2021. I'm not going to count the $3.15 it was at and back when it launched, because there was almost none in circulation back then. So we're looking at this number. And I agree with you. The chart is looking bullish and the trend is looking bullish. Now, often I tease about how there's deeper information for people who are serious about this by joining the private Patreon. And one of the things that they're missing out is that some of our rainmakers are really experienced at crypto too, and really experienced in business and other things. And one of our rainmaker family, who's got so much business and investment experience behind him, dug really deep into what's going on with the ISO 220 coins, and a lot of further research that our rainmaker has been able to benefit from his knowledge and understanding. So I had this thesis that's like, I realized I was missing out on a lot of deals back in 2020 that were underpriced because there was just me. But if we created this group of investors who thought alike, would miss less. And I know a lot of our rainmaker family has stocked up on the ISO coins and done well so far with them. And I think there's a lot more room to run. Now, I'm not too interested in a lot of blue chips, and I don't hold any other than a little bit of Cardano. But I like what's going on with Algorand here, and its market cap isn't too high for a blue chip, 2.41, and that chart's bullish. And I like what's going on with it. I would rate this a buy, even though I'm not buying it. I am tempted to get some of the ISO coins because what they can do from here is quite crazy for where blue chips are at. But I think some of the ISO coins, because the standards, they're in line with the standards, they're going to get lots of institutional adoption. And there's a chance that even though their market cap is higher, they could still have 50x in upward gains. I just don't have a pattern to look at. That's why I'm not playing that play heavily. I just have some XRP. So I guess I have Cardano. I also have XRP as far as blue chips. But I like what's going on with Algorand here. So let's take a look at Kyle's suggestion at DYNEX. We looked at that a couple times the last few months. Let's see where things are at.
Yeah. So DYNEX, very interesting chart. So we can see clearly the downward trend, how it accelerated and then ended at this point. And of course, that's all with hindsight, because you wouldn't have known that it ended there until we got this initial rally. Now, I think when we looked at this last time, we were looking at this as a potential base, and it went into, well, it could have been an inverse head and shoulders, but again, these patterns have triggers. They have levels that once they're breached, you can then justify it being a base and the market moving in the opposite direction. But what happened here was the that pattern was invalidated, and then it went lower, and then we get a bigger pattern, which is kind of what I was saying before. Sometimes a shorter term pattern can fail and you get a longer term pattern. Now here it's actually more interesting and more technically clean, I would say, because at 6.3 cents, that was the breakout point. You can also see how it accelerated into it. It came down and then suddenly something went on there, and there was very strong buying, little continuation pattern there, and off it went. So it broke this base at 6.3 6.3 cents, and it's now forming potentially a triangular constriction, which will be a bullish pattern as well. So it might go sideways for a few days and then it should break higher. So for me, it's a buy. We've also got, look at these two moving averages coming in. You're about to get what is called a bullish crossover. Now, if they were both going upwards at the same time, that would be a golden cross, what's called a golden cross. It's used a lot in the media. People talk about golden crosses, usually on places like Bloomberg, to to make things sound a bit more exciting. All it means is that both moving averages are rising and they cross over. But the big question is, which moving averages are you using? You could probably find any two that will cross over and they've been moving up. But I tend to use longer term and medium term as like 1 year and kind of 3 to 6 month periods of averages. And when they cross over, that is a good sign. So where did they last cross to the downside? Crossed here to the downside, but there was a triple top there, which is quite a rare pattern, but it's still a bearish pattern. And it even came in with another retest up there. But coming back to the most recent price action, something's definitely changed here. The dynamics has definitely changed, and this is looking far more bullish than it has in a long time. So for me, it is a buy. And my stop, I think a good place to put it would be below this moving average, which is the 63-day moving average. That will move with the market and reduce risk. So that would be my strategy.
So DYNEX, I'm just looking about DYNEX, trying to catch up on what it is. It consists of participating proof of useful work miners that constitute a decentralized quantum computing network, which is capable of computing quantum algorithms featuring quantum entanglement and tunneling effects at scale. All right. Price action, well, perhaps the bottom is in, but often I do see it come down a little bit before it runs more, but we're probably early in the run. Its market cap is still pretty low. Let's see, it's gone about 3x from the bottom here. So it probably was at a $2.5 million market cap, and now it's close to a $7.5 million market cap. Interesting. So this isn't one that I know tons about. It's not one that I've been buying. There is a big argument about, are a lot of the current crypto things quantum computer safe? Now, what has been providing security with quantum computers is the expense of them is so high that nobody's yet used them maliciously to hack cryptographical encryption. But that might be done in the future, and that's the concern. And that's why some of the companies like DYNEX are trying to build quantum computing safe algorithms that even quantum computers can't hack them. So interesting. I think there's a narrative to be made for that. What is their usefulness apart from that? I don't know. I don't know what else it is other than it says without the limitation of traditional quantum computing, it can solve real world problems. But what real world problems is it solving? Made possible with our proprietary algorithm. So I'm just curious to know more. Price chart is all right. We'll see. I would wait for it to come down a little bit cheaper again and see if it touches down near this 4.5 cents. That would be my buy point. For now, it's just a wait for me. All right. Let's see what we got. Comment section. I think there was another comment that came in. Why don't we take a look at DEVVE again? That's one I want to look at.
How about also looking at OMI, because there has been an update on the price action there from last week as well.
Yeah, let's take a look at DEVVE and OMI.
And it looks like
COPI.
we got Fartcoin in the chamber as well. So that's
Big A is asking. I know Big A trade some of the meme coins. So
yeah, I mean,
for you, Big A, we'll take a look at Fartcoin.
The thing is, if it's going up and the chart looks right, then you know who are we to argue? Really, and that chart is a chart. But on DEVVE, yeah, we're still in this consolidation, aren't we? I mean, it made this inverse head and shoulders, which went through here. Then the market's come back, resting on this 45-cent support, which has been a key level. We mentioned that a couple of times. Between 45 and 50 cents is a key support zone. these lows are getting higher, and this is now the trend rate. So it's gone from this exciting acceleration, correction, into a slower but still an upward trend. So here it's possibly still a wait, I think, just because it's kind of going sideways, but it would not take much, and by not much I mean just trading in the 57 to 58 cents area to then be testing this line, and that would be our like a secondary or tertiary trigger to be buying. Then the next target would be 70 cents, and then beyond that 80 cents. But as you've seen before, when things move, they move fast. So I would definitely be, keeping an eye on that.
Yeah. DEVVE is just trading in this pattern sideways. It's not breaking to the upside yet. I do like the trend it's on, and I like buying cheap. And a lot of the value investing is like, what price do I consider this cheap? And DEVVE is definitely within that. Let's see. DEVVE, its market cap is under 50 million for a layer 1 blockchain with the fastest speeds of any blockchain I've seen. So it's definitely in a very inexpensive region for what it is. Layer 1 blockchain with 8 million transactions per second. Will it get greater traction? Well, that's the hope. This is one of my larger positions in all of crypto. So obviously I'm biased towards this. I'm very biased towards it. So because I believe in the team behind it, and I like their technology, or what I understand about their technology. And I think it will get greater traction, but we'll see how this plays out. Overall, I'm seeing this nice rounding pattern here, and I think this is an amazing accumulation zone. So I'm going to rate it a buy. I like it a lot. Now, where do I hope the upside of this goes? A lot higher than this. We'll see how it plays out. Could go to like a $7 token, could go to a $70 token, could go to a $700 token. I don't know. I'm hoping it goes into the $70 to $700, but we'll see how it plays out. All right, let's take a look at OMI.
So look, it's not quite a buy yet. So I'm not saying that everything's changed, but what I am saying is that things are looking more interesting. Like it's another step closer to it forming quite an important base. So if we look at these lows, they have started to flatten out, that's for sure. And I know we've had some price action that's ultimately seen it, go up, and then it's been retraced, but it's still forming a bit of a base or potential base here. Now it needs to do a bit more work, but what I didn't want to see happen was, it be trading up here all of a sudden, and then us saying, well, we've taken our eye off the ball. So this line here, possible inverse head and shoulders, but I think that would be a good short-term trigger for me. What's that level at 2059? With all the zeros in. If it gets through there, short-term buy, small amount, and we'll see if it can get to this level and then break the downward trend line. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to do it. I'm just saying that's my trigger level. Now, why I liked it, another reason why I wanted to talk about it was because it's made this double bottom here. You can see that this low and this low is higher. So we have got the beginnings of a nascent upward trend, and it's done it before, as I say, and it's folded, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't watch it every time it does it, because if and when it does eventually trend and stick, it's going to have done something like this. So that's why I thought, well, we should look at it this week, because if it's trading up here next week, it'll be like, those were the levels to have bought it out, or to have at least been watching it to say that something different's happening. Now, the other thing too is, of course, it did break into new lows, all-time lows, but then it reversed very quickly. So that was an interesting bear trap again. So, it's still equivocal, because there's a lot that I'm saying there that's, some of it's bullish, some of it's bearish, but before it was like mostly bearish, and now it's becoming much more balanced and possibly even edging towards the bullish side. And there are trigger levels that we can be looking at. So for me, as I say, this area here and the fact that it's starting to make an upward trend potentially is putting it on watch. So it's still a wait, but I just wanted to, bring it to the attention that something's going on potentially.
Yeah, OMI's another one of my favorites. Now, again, I'm very biased on this. I'm very heavy on this one myself. I've loaded up big bags on OMI because I expect that it's going to do well this bull cycle. So there's my biases. But what I like is, so it has been going down. So a lot of people see this and they're just like, oh, OMI's terrible, it's dead. And what they're looking at is their price action, and they think that this is dead. But what I know about the crypto space is fundamentally, I look at the underlying business. And if the underlying business is doing pretty well, that this at some point turns around. And that's what I think this is going to do. And I think it's a massive victory that it's so cheap, because the way you make money in any investment is buy low, sell high, and you can't buy low if it never goes low. And so OMI has gone really low for quite a while, and it's been an amazing accumulation zone, like incredible. I didn't even think it would get this cheap. I felt like this price was cheap here, and yet it's gotten almost a third of what I felt like was a really cheap price. So it's incredibly cheap. It's been there for a while, so a lot of people are expecting it won't turn around. I think it turns around really strong at a certain point. I don't know when this bull run that turnaround is, but I like buying things in a really cheap zone. It's been there for a while. I think this is an incredible buy. So versus all the blue chips where I'm like, I'm not actually buying it. OMI is one that I've actually been buying. Why? This is the type of deal I like. If we look at its market cap, let me just pull it up on CoinMarketCap. Its market cap is 52 million. I think this is my type of deal. This is what I get excited about. Yeah, that's the type of thing that I'm actually buying. All right, what else did we have? We have a COPI suggestion. Was there another one I missed in here?
Apart from Fartcoin.
Fartcoin, yes. Fartcoin is next up on the list.
Yeah.
I've got to step away again for a second, so I'll be back.
Okay.
As you cover Fartcoin.
Well, I'll cover both, and then maybe you can take both of them on when you get back. So that'll give you a bit of time. On the Fartcoin, I mean, it's hard to really, take it seriously in terms of the name, but in terms of the price action, why not? Because it's been an upward trend, not a whole lot of data, of course, so we've got to take that into account. But it's playing in this range, very clear range, and I guess it's a breakout play as to whether it wants to take the high out or take the low out. But given the overall pressure and trend is to the upside, one would expect the upside to be the breakout level and this to work as support. Now, I wouldn't like to hold it much below this support level because it looks a little, I mean, some people might say it's double top. I don't think it qualifies really, because there's not been as much enough of a trend for that to be a top, but it's still possible that it will hit stop losses because there'll be a lot of short-term players getting into it, looking for a fast gain, and if they don't get it, they'll exit quickly because they know it's a meme coin. I mean, that's the psychology behind it. But I think the level where I definitely wouldn't want to hold it is below 64 cents, because that is a good, what should be good support, given that it was resistance on the way up. So overall, I think it's a wait for me short term. The breakout, this would have to be one that I'd have to buy given clearer signals, and the clearer signals would be a break of 169. It's tried it twice there and failed, so that opens up acceleration. Now that doesn't mean it won't get there. It just means that I'd be kind of sitting on the sidelines, and if other people are in it early, then fine. I could justify technically buying it where it is now, because I've got a good stop loss point. So that's on risk versus reward. But on the actual price action itself, it's shown to be fairly consistently in this range since April. So something would have to change. At the very least, I'd like it to be in the top half of that range to indicate that it's having a go at this upside here. So, bigger picture, I mean, yeah, I mean, the trend is up. So that has a bias as well. It's just whether it's going to do it now, and what signals to take as it's moving higher, or whether to get in now. And I personally wouldn't, because the pattern is not as clean as I would like. I'd probably pick something else that has a pattern that looks more like it's on the run. But that doesn't mean, as I say, it won't go higher. Um, so I think that shakes out into it's a wait, and I become very interested above $1.13, say, like a weekly close in that area, means it's gone from a wait to a small buy, and then a breakthrough 169 means that someone else has bought it ahead of me and probably is quite a lot smarter than me. So, I'd have to congratulate them. But um, but I can see why you want to look at it. It is definitely an interesting chart.
I'd say his timeline probably checks out. So he's looking for like a 3-month timeline, 1 to 3 month trade, and it's like, cool. I don't trade meme coins because the predictability is just less, and their estimated returns is less. Now, Fartcoin has like cleared the atmosphere. So one of the things I don't like about meme coins is there are 20,000 new meme coins launching per week in when the meme coin narrative hits. And 1 or 2 of those will break out and enter a trajectory where they make it so everyone knows who they are. And Fartcoin's broken that trajectory. But your percentage chance of getting a meme coin that breaks that trajectory in the early days is low. Once it's broken that trajectory and it's going to be around for a while, its potential upside isn't as high as some of the other things I'm interested in. So predictability is just not high enough for me. And then once some of the few that do survive, they've already realized some of their gains. So it's just not my type of play. But Fartcoin, like, ingenious name, right? It's funny how like Vice sells and just like inappropriate things sell. And so funny enough, like it's just funny enough, which with a meme coin, funny matters, that it's at $1 billion market cap. And if you are going to suggest meme coins to look at, Wednesday is the day, because Paul is just looking at price action. And so there aren't really any fundamentals to go on for meme coins. It's just a price action type of trade. But I would think this price action looks good for a 3-month trade. Now, a lot of this action here was back when meme coins were doing tremendously well, and it had a huge upside. And I think meme coins do well in an environment where crypto is what people are focusing on, because one of the first things new people do is they come into meme coins because there's not much for them to wrap their mind around, and they're excited to invest in crypto. And, their friends tell them about a meme coin. There's not much to understand, and they usually ape into meme coins first. So Fartcoin's probably going to be one of those meme coins. So I expect that in the coming 3 months, some of the action with the bull market has happened, and that meme coins run. So probably that'll work out fine for you. Good entry point. He said he got in at 86 cents. So you make your money on the buy with investments, meaning if you don't buy low, you're screwed, because that's where you make your money, is buying low. And that's a good entry point. Yeah, Fartcoin play is 86 entry to $1.60, so 100% profit up, and then take the initial with stop around entry point. Has a lot of attention to the crypto community. Thank you for looking at it. All right, let's take a look at cornucopias. This is one I do like a lot. And
Yes,
it's not a meme coin.
Yeah.
COPI is the ticker symbol.
Yeah. I remember we used to look at this quite a lot, actually, and it's been a little while, hasn't it? So um, again, this is good timing to be putting this on the radar, because it looks to me like we are forming some form of base here. Um, Perhaps an inverse head and shoulders. It's triggered a double bottom here. It's come back to retest. So that's possibly enough for a buy on its own, but it might be making a bigger pattern. And to be fair, it needs to do that because it has been in quite a severe bear market from January 24. We did get this rally up here uh, around September, October last year. So maybe we're going to get a repeat of that, but hopefully this time it sticks. But overall, that's forming a base. Definitely should be on the radar. I can justify a buy here because of the double bottom. Now, I would prefer it to be, of course, through this level, because this would be an inverse head and shoulders, and that's a basing pattern, and sometimes it can be in this range for a little while longer before it actually breaks out. So buying it here might see it go sideways for 2 or 3 weeks, where something else could be running, and that might be a better use of short-term capital. But overall, I can justify a buy, and the stop would be around 1.4 cents because it's below the support level. It's a little further below the double bottom trigger, giving it a bit more room, because things that are slightly thinly traded or don't have the volume, you have to give them a little bit more room because that's the nature of it. But of course, the percentage moves that they can go can also be quite a lot more as well. So overall, that shakes out into, for me, it's a buy with a stop. Now we also see on the daily chart, we've got these moving averages converging again, so they could be crossing. I know it crossed there to the upside after the strong move. This is a more orderly base, so it looks like it's going to cross into a bullish, moving average cross before the base is complete, which is a nicer position for it to be in. But to be fair, it's had a fairly decent run since the lows, and I would say if we were at this point here, I would not be buying it. I could not justify buying it technically, but here, it even though we're further off the lows, that's the nature of the way technicals works. It's making its base, and for me, that's where it's telling me that this price action is turning around. So um, a short-term buy here, and then or smaller buy, I should say, here, and then confirmation around the 2.1 cents area if and when it takes out this resistance point.
I like this one. And it's not as juicy as it was, but it's still very close to as juicy. Blockchain gaming has been out of the narrative for too long, and nothing stays out of the narrative for forever. So it's down to much cheaper than when blockchain gaming had its run before. And a lot of blockchain gaming ran in early October through mid-October, and cornucopias hadn't. And I did tell people cornucopias was undervalued, and for some reason that run hadn't caught up to it. Well, that run did catch up to it, and it went from 2.5 cents to 12.5 cents. And then it's come back down now recently at 1.1 cents. It is up almost 50% at 1.8 cents. So it's gotten some traction a little bit, but I still think it's very, very cheap. Its market cap's under 20 million. I think in a bull run that this could go up to $1 or higher, and maybe much, much higher if its game gets a lot of traction. So I suspect cornucopias, the way they've set it up, might actually be one of the first metaverse plays, because it's a game, but it's built kind of like a metaverse too. And so I'm looking forward to see how this one goes. I own a lot of land in this. I own a bunch of the tokens, so I'm invested myself in this pretty heavily. And they're doing their land grab coming up. So if you have some land, study up on what to do for the land grab so that you can claim your land. All right. Justice says, why do I feel like we won't hear about the DEVVE partnership for a long time or never? Because that's what it feels like, and our feelings aren't facts, but they are feelings, and it feels like exactly that. So that's why. Now I have to run myself. So I guess we'll wrap it up with that. Paul, you're a champion for joining us. Good things happen in the crypto market. It's going to be an exciting 6 months from here.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the picks. Thanks for the comments. And yeah, I just got to go off and see if I can learn a bit of TA in between now and next week.
Real quick, there was some updates on that.
Look, I'm not
just jumped in to see that as weak TA is some of the cleanest, fundamentally sound TA I've seen.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
And one that can make a living over a 3-year term based on their TA, let alone 3 decades, has respect. Yeah. Sometimes internet trolls just don't know what they're talking about.
I think they're bots, to be honest. I think they're designed just to get people angry, and it's like, but I genuinely thought it was funny. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all your comments. Have a great week. See you next week.
See ya. All right. It's going to be an amazing 6 months. Like, we're seeing the build up. It was fun seeing ETH taking off. A lot of this stuff is happening. Now, I get excited about sharing stuff when everybody is missing it. Now, a lot of what I've been sharing over the past 4 years is buy low and sell high. Now, we're not in the sell high point. There's some things that are still buying low, but a lot of it's still the same thing. So you've noticed I haven't been posting as much. Why? Because what is there to tell you other than what I've been telling you? Everything still holds. Still doing the weekly shows with Omi as my homie, and this one, and our Friday live streams once a month, and then an occasional video, but there's not tons to talk about now. Right now, it's just letting it play out. We've made our positions, at least I've made my positions, and I know most of you have, and there's not much else to talk about other than we're letting it play out. Now, coming up soon, there's going to be a lot to talk about because it's going to be harvesting period. So a lot of the seeds are planted. A lot of everything is like been identified. Then it will be harvesting season, and maybe some of it will harvest early enough that there'll be time to roll it. There will be a lot of discussion on that. So in that environment, I will be making more videos, but the Discord is going to be way more important because that will be in real time. So, and for those that are gold members, you'll see exactly what I'm selling and what I'm rolling into, because as gold members in Discord, you get access to me posting what my trades were. All right. Thanks, everyone. We will see you all soon. Bye for now.